Now, it would be great to leave the big reveal till the end, but you've already seen the thumbnail. This is the Valentine's Day bouquet. It's not for you. And so I'm just going to talk you through the whole process of making it, what I was thinking, the inspiration, the whole thing. I can't remember exactly the first time I saw a crochet flower bouquet. I feel like I've been seeing them for ages on TikTok, ages on Twitter. I just see crochet flowers and I'm like, oh my gosh, they look so pretty. I made some crochet flowers last year for my mum for Mother's Day, and they look like a really, really sad bouquet now compared to this. They're so sad. My mum loved them at the time. She was so excited, but I'm like, oh my gosh. Anyway, I was surprised how easy the tulips were to make, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make a big flower bouquet sometime. It was on the list of project ideas, it was on the list of YouTube video ideas, but between everything I hadn't gotten around to it until this week. When I was looking up the inspiration, I was just expecting to see like different colors and different kinds of flowers I could make. I wasn't expecting to see little plushies in every single bouquet. Okay, maybe not every single bouquet, but so many had cute little plushies, and I was so taken with them. I was like, that is definitely what we're doing. I can't not do that now. Having 2 plushies in love seemed like a very natural thing to do for Valentine's Day. And then frogs, because why not frogs? I love frogs. Everyone loves frogs. They're cute, they're in love, and it just seemed like it would be cute. That's pretty much the reasoning behind everything I do. I thought it would be cute. So the colour palette could have been red and pink. It could have been red and pink and white, but red is just like a very bold colour for me. I'm a much more pastel person, and I just wanted to stick with the pinks and the whites because I thought that looked really cute, especially when I brought in like the green that I wanted for the stems and the light green I wanted for the frogs. I just thought it would look cuter that way. It might scream Valentine's Day a bit more if it had red in there, but like I wanted to make it something that I really like to look at as well. All the yarn I bought from Spotlight, with the exception of the frogs. I used a Kmart yarn that I had just because it was the only light green yarn I had and I liked that in colour. I used a 3.5mm crochet hook for most of this, except for the frogs that got a 3mm crochet hook. So I started off the flower bouquet by making the tulips because I'd done that before, so I knew how to do that. And making the actual tulip bulb is really, really straightforward. If you know how to crochet, you already know how to make one of these. Basically just has like a standard base of 30 crochets. So you start off with a magic ring of 6, and then you increase each stitch to 12, and then you're going to go around and you're going to increase every 2nd stitch, every 3rd stitch, every 4th stitch until you get 30 in a round. And then once you've done that, you just single crochet all around and you keep going and you keep going until you get to 8 or 9 rows. I think I had 8, maybe I had 9. I actually can't remember. I had 8. So to create the stem, I had skewers. I didn't like how the skewers had little points on the end. I mean, that is what a skewer is for, to like stick through food. So I like kind of sawed them off with, what do you call it? A safety knife? Kind of the opposite of a safety knife. They're really unsafe. Stanley knife, is that what they're called? So yeah, I kind of sawed it back and forth and it made the most horrible sound. Anyway, we got to it and I cut off the end. Honestly, I don't think it would have made a difference cutting off the end, but I guess I was just imagining if I was like hugging my flowers and then suddenly a skewer poked me in the face. But I think they're deep enough in there that that wouldn't happen, so it was probably a pointless task. But it's something I did. So once I had that, it was time to greenify the skewers. So I used a basic 8-ply yarn. I put some hot glue at the very end. I then carefully wrapped the yarn around the glue, waited a minute, and then sort of firmed it up. And then basically it was just a wrapping game. You just wrapped it around and around and around and around, and you just keep going until you get to the end, and then you get some more hot glue, put a bit at the end and stick it, and somehow it stays. I don't know how it stays. Maybe it would be smarter to actually put hot glue gun down the whole thing, or not even hot glue, just some kind of glue down the whole thing so every bit would stay. But I haven't had a problem. They stay fine. I don't know why. I think just if you do it tight enough and you got glue at the start, glue at the end, somehow it works. I don't know, but it does. And then once that was done, you get the tulip bulb, and you've got a nice hole in the middle from your magic circle. Put that over the skewer, and then what I like to do is completely flip the flower inside out, hot glue gun around the join between the skewer and the flower, and then wait for that to dry, flip it back inside out, and then you want to get a bit of stuffing, just a little bit of stuffing, not too much stuffing, but not too little stuffing. You want it to be just right. You're Goldilocks in this situation. And then once you've stuffed it a little bit, then you can do the magic. Then you make the little petals. Now, to make magic happen, you need to fold the tulip in half. It's going to be a flat tulip, and then you take this end and you're just going to sew it right through the middle. I like to do it 2 or 3 times just to make it nice and secure. And then you're going to do the same thing with the other side. This can be a little bit fiddly, but you're going to fold it in half, and then you're just going to basically sew through the same spot, and then bam, you have one leafless tulip. So to make the leaves, I followed a tutorial. I'd never crocheted a leaf before. That's not true. I'd crocheted some in my mum's bouquet, but they were really long leaves and I wanted kind of cute little round fluffy leaves. Not fluffy leaves, just like round leaves that would be like, hi! And the first thing that came up on Pinterest looked good. It did involve using quite a few different crochet stitches, but it was a really easy pattern to follow. I'll leave the pattern in the description below. I don't want to do like a full tutorial because it's not my pattern, so if you want the pattern, you can go to this person's website. Once I had 2 leaves, I placed them on and I was like, oh my goodness, that's gonna look so cute. I was originally thinking I would sew them on, but then there was gonna be like a whole round thing of yarn in the middle and it just didn't look very nice. And I was like, I may as well just hot glue gun this on. That'll probably look better. And it did. It looked so much better and they held in shape, in position really well. I often think of like using hot glue as cheating, but it's really not. It's just another craft tool you can use. I always think like for crocheting, oh, I have to do it with just wool, but you don't. You can use a hot glue gun as much as you want. There are no rules. Unless you're entering like a crocheting competition that has rules, then you should probably follow the rules. But when you're just making stuff for yourself, use hot glue. Or don't use hot glue if you hate hot glue. Do whatever you want. So then I had 1 beautiful tulip and I wanted 9 beautiful tulips. So I set off to make my 8 other tulips. I kind of did it as a production line. I would do every step of the process 8 times before moving on to the next step or the next piece or whatever the next thing I had to do was. It was a very satisfying process actually. Really simple to make too. You know what I was doing while making them? I was watching Bluey. I freaking love Bluey. It is one of my favorite shows. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. I don't care what age you are. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you like. You're gonna like Bluey. So then I have my 9 tulips made, but that wasn't all the flowers I wanted for the bouquet. I had seen these lavender looking flowers everywhere, knew I definitely wanted to make them. They're not really lavenders because they're like pink and white. I guess you could call them like hyacinths, like you know in Animal Crossing, they're kind of like that vibe. They're just kind of like long, floofy, pretty flowers. And I had never made any of these before. So I followed a video tutorial, which was a really, really good video tutorial. I'll link it below, would recommend. As I was doing this tutorial, I was like, I have no idea. How is this meant to make a flower? I'm so confused what I'm doing. Because what you get is you get like a long, spinny thing that kind of looks like a scrunchie. It kind of looks like a piece of coral. It just looks like a whole bunch of crochet that wants to like gather up and just sit in a blob. But what you do is you grab your stem and you carefully like glue it around the stem and it looks beautiful. The first one I made, I was genuinely so excited. I was like, oh my god, that is so cool. I can't believe I just made that. I actually didn't glue it the whole way down, having said that. I glued it at the top and I glued it at the end and they stay. Like I did with the stems, it would probably be better to glue it the whole way down, but hey, it works. They're not unraveling. I'm happy. They're happy. So to make the rest of these flowers, I also did another sort of production line. I crocheted all the flowery pieces and then did all the stems and then attached them all together at the same time, which was really fun and really satisfying. And then I was kind of debating whether to put leaves to them. I decided I liked them without leaves. I think they would have looked cute either way, but I thought I had so many leaves from the tulips anyway, and I had spent so long making the leaves from the tulips. I had already made 18 leaves and I didn't really feel like making 18 more. So with that, my 18 flowers were complete and I was so happy with how they turned out. Then it was time to move on. So I had no idea how I was going to do the frog. There are so many different frogs you can make. I was originally thinking I'd have it with like a head and like a belly. It would have like really tiny little arms. But then I was stressing, so I took a break. I went on TikTok for a bit, and while I was scrolling, I saw someone's like clay creation. They had made a mug with a frog holding a heart inside, and it was just like perfect. I was like, oh my god, that is the inspiration here. Blobby frog with long arms. The person who made its frogs also had long legs. My frogs do not have legs. So to make these frogs was virtually like making another tulip. The base was exactly the same. I kept going around with single crochet, but I ended up doing 10 rows, wanted them to be a little bit longer than the tulips. And then I was smart. I was smart when I made these frogs. Instead of closing the body up straight away like I normally do, I thought I need a face. It'll be much easier to sew the face on if the body isn't closed up. The first part of the face was the frog eyes. To make these frog eyes, I was really just making it up as I went along, but basically what I did was 6 single crochets in a magic circle, then I did 2 rows of 6, and then on the 3rd row I did an increase, 2 stitches, an increase, and 2 more stitches, and that was how I came up with this little shape. Then once the shape was done, I got one of my safety eyes. I got these off Amazon like years ago. They're all kind of mixed up in their box. I tried a smaller size first, wasn't quite happy with how it looked, and settled on this bigger size here. Luckily I had 4 of this bigger size, and then I had these little clip-on back bits. They're like plastic things that you can put on just to secure them in place so they don't fall out, and I thought I was going to stuff the eyes, but I didn't think they needed it. it, like with the back of the eye, they kind of had enough shape to them and they were so small, they really didn't need any more stuffing. So then I just had to sew on the eyes of the body. I'd left a long tail, so that was very easy to sew in. And yes, because I hadn't closed it up, it made it a heck of a lot easier to sew those eyes on. And then it was time for the most dreaded part. Sewing a mouth is like the hardest thing for me in crochet. It always has been. I always struggle to get them looking cute. My plan of attack was to use black embroidery thread and then just hope for the best. Part of my problem when I do smiles is usually because I've already closed them up and it makes it a lot harder to sew. So I was hopeful, however, I was disappointed. I didn't like how the smile turned out, it looked ugly. And then I did another smile, which I thought looked a lot better than the first one. So I was like, yeah, I'm happy with that. Time to move on to the cheeks. The heart cheeks were fully inspired by Philip, the very rare squishmallow frog. I always use felt for doing little face features, but I didn't have any felt this time, so I just used some pink fabric I had lying around, and I kind of like it better. Fabric is so much easier to cut than felt. It's so much easier to do details. I don't know why I never thought of doing fabric before. The tricky thing about fabric is it does fray, but I just stuck it on with fabric glue straight away, and I think it's gonna hold. So hey, that was a good thing learned. With the cheeks done, I could now fully assess my frog face, and I decided I didn't like it. Looking back at this footage, I'm like, what was I worried about? That was so cute. But at the time, I was like, nope, this smile's gotta go, gotta do a new one. At the time, I thought the triangles weren't working, so I went for a completely different shape, and I found a shape I was happy with. But as you'll notice, when it came to doing the second frog, I decided that I liked the little triangle better. And then I was like, do I change the other one? And I was like, no, it's kind of cute that they're different because they're frogs in love. They're not identical twins. And they're kind of giving me like Ludwig and Wendy vibes. Anyway, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. We still need to stuff the first frog. So with the frog's face completed, I could finally close up that frog. I decreased for a bit, added the stuffing in, and then completely closed it up and had a glorious blobby frog, which looks exactly like a squishmallow, to be honest. That was not intentional, but they're literally squishmallow shaped. I had no idea to do the heart. I never crocheted a heart before, and it took me a while. I looked up a few different tutorials, couldn't find a good one, and then eventually I stumbled across this one, which I'll link below, where you did each kind of top bit of the heart separately, joined them together, and then kept crocheting around and sort of decreasing every round until you got the heart. I really didn't like how you could see this very visible line of decrease stitches down the side. I wasn't like quite happy with the size. I wanted it to be like a bit smaller, and then I tried to make a smaller one by like downsizing the pattern myself, and I know what I did wrong, but it turned out to be like a completely different shape. It was still a heart, but I just preferred the shape to this one. Now at this point in my recording, I got distracted by a very cute corgi, and I forgot to mention that I actually didn't put any stuffing in the heart. So in the pattern they do, but for mine I didn't, and I think that's why the decreases down the side were so obvious. Anyway, despite all the problems with the heart, I did stick with it, and I thought I would also like it better with the frog arms, so I just wanted to see how it was going to look. So for their arms, I just did a base of 4 crochets in the magic ring and then just kept going. It's always very fiddly when you have such a little base, but you just be patient, just make sure you do each stitch, and then eventually you get a long noodly looking arm. With all my pieces complete, it was finally time to assemble the centerpiece, to put all the frog pieces and heart pieces together. Well, there was 1 heart piece and there were only 4 frog pieces, but you know what I'm saying. I mostly used my friend the hot glue gun for this. I started off by gluing the heart because I wanted to have that in a good spot before I did the arms, and then I glued on the little arms just by putting a dot of glue at the end of each arm and sticking it where I wanted on the heart. Then I sewed on the end of the arms because, you know, they still had that long tail, and I thought it would look neater if I sewed in the ends of the arms. And then the frogs didn't seem as in love as I wanted them to be. They were feeling a bit distant from each other, so they had to get glued together too. I was beyond happy with how the frogs look. I was like, this is the cutest thing I've ever crocheted in my life. Then actually came the most difficult bit of the whole process, which was figuring out how to get it into a bouquet formation. The first thing I did was use an elastic band to tie all the flowers together in a bunch. Then I needed to decide which of my papers I would use to actually wrap the flowers. Now I had a few different things. I had some tissue paper in varying shades of pink, which I just got from my craft box. I also had this wrapping paper, which was just left over from someone's birthday, very Valentine's Day with the hearts. Now the brown paper I actually got from an actual bouquet of flowers that my mum kindly bought me last week. Look how pretty they are! Now, as you will have already noticed, I ended up using everything to make this bouquet. I liked bits about all of them. I liked how the hearts were there, but I didn't want too many hearts. I liked the pink, but I didn't want just tissue paper. And the brown was a good solid paper for the outside. To get everything to stay in place, I pretty much just used sticky tape. A lot of sticky tape in a lot of places. I was also sort of cutting the pieces as I went to make it look like a nicer shape. I did also have a very distinct top part of the bouquet and then like bouquet handle, I just wrapped a big cylinder of brown paper around the end of the top part and put some ribbons over to conceal it. So that, my friends, is the story of how I made my Valentine's Day bouquet. I'm not completely in love with this shape, but I think it gives off the vibe like you just went to the florist, got a beautiful wrapped bouquet. I'm absolutely in love with the frozen love. That's definitely my favorite part of the thing. And for that reason, I didn't want to actually stick them in the bouquet because I want to be able to like take them out and like sit them places if I want. I really hope you enjoyed this video. It's been a long time since I made a YouTube video, but I have a big YouTube plan for this year, so I'm going to be consistently making videos again. If you're used to watch my videos and you're back, thank you so much for coming back. And if you're a new friend, welcome. I'm going to be making lots of like crochet videos and craft videos this year, and I'm very excited to get going. I've got my next couple videos already in the works, so I will be back with one of those next week. Thank you so much for watching. Bye! You're Goldilocks in this situation. Did you see that? My frogs just left me. They're on their honeymoon already.